Hi, everyone. Okay. In the course of our life, we may be cut by all sorts of things. It may be a familiar knife, the cold blade of cruelty, or the microscopic shards of alienation. Stories help us piece together fragments of our experiences. We all have stories to tell, but often it may be that nobody is listening. This problem is at the center of Queer Listening Circle. QLC doesn't aim to offer a solution. It is conceived as a space for questions, a space for people to come and tell their stories, and whether we can make space within to listen to other stories. So why is listening important? Is it so you may understand? You don't always understand. Is it so you may respond? If you're focused on responding, perhaps you're not listening. In a listening circle, we ask you to step in by shedding your assumptions of spaces, of people, and to participate in it. Now, what is a listening circle? A listening circle is a particular setting up of a group of people. Everybody sits together to form a circle. This physical arrangement has been understood to create a sense of intimacy and a sealed safe space for people. It has been used extensively in the history of psychotherapy. Listening circles can be around themes, around people with shared experiences, and so on. We use the word queer in Queer Listening Circle to address certain people who are LGBTQI+. It is a circumscription of the space of facilitators and participants to certain people, a limit that is set on this space. Limits and boundaries are not a bad thing. They can act as safeguards for vulnerable people and vulnerable groups. So what is the function of Queer Listening Circle? It is not a support group, although it may be supportive. It is not a therapy space, although it may be therapeutic. It is not peer listening, peer counseling, and it is not a substitute for any of this. What anchors this space, though, is an emphasis on the aspect of listening, specifically on developing a capacity to listen. So how do you develop a capacity to listen? Well, there are two strands to it. You develop a capacity to listen by listening. Listening is a practice. And secondly, by taking an experimentative approach to listening. The question to keep in mind is how. Notice how you may be listening while the other is speaking. Observe how you may be paying attention or drifting away. What is your state of mind? Watch as it may evolve within you. Many people may struggle to listen for varied reasons. Setting is crucial. The following three elements were instrumental for us in creating this setting. Sitting together. We had the desire to sit together. Often places of sharing can quickly become places of debates. We wanted this setting specifically to discourage the debate, the confrontational debate format. Talking stick. Talking stick is placed in the center of the circle and it serves an important function. Only the person holding the talking stick may speak. This is to discourage interruptions from others so that a person may take their time. When the talking stick is returned to the center, we allow for a pause, a moment of silence before another person may speak. This helps us by discouraging quick reaction to a person, as it gives us time to think through before we may respond to another person. Silence. We wanted the space of queer listening circle to allow for full speech, which includes its gaps in silences. Silence is an important element of the practice of listening. And it is also an important tool to facilitate a space for listening. Silence can allow us to unpack ourselves away from the noise, both environmental and informational. So we've been thinking about the world as it is and the principles of a world that we may want. After all, utopias are not only ideas, and nor are they universal. They're simply specific bubbles of experiences within space-time. So how do we translate diversity, equality, these architectures of hopes meaningfully to craft an experience? Well, we put in place certain rules embodying them. Recenter listening to rediscover spontaneity. When a group setting gives primacy to sharing, people may end up competing for attention. For example, while the other is speaking, we may tend to prepare what we are going to say. When we decenter speaking and recenter listening, it allows us to be present to listen to the other. And when we don't pre-plan what we are going to say, we may end up surprising ourselves with what comes out when it's our turn. So this rewiring helps us to be present listeners and to become more spontaneous in sharing. Relation of non-hierarchy. We wanted a horizontal relationality between the facilitator and the participant. Our dynamic is not to impart knowledge or skills that the facilitator may possess. Instead, it is to listen and learn by paying very close attention to the voices emerging within the circle. Recover diversity by allowing for difference. We wanted a different quality of queer space, one that is sensitive to the need of being heard, of being seen, and being listened to, not as a homogeneous group of people, but as singular persons within an alliance. A space to allow for our diverse life stories to bring into question dominating discourses. Radical listening. We wish to create equality and acceptance by listening to everybody. Listening doesn't mean agreeing. It is to receive people where they are, acknowledging their reality, their world. Then what is so threatening about listening to others? When we listen, our world expands. Our inner world expands. But in order to expand, it must break open. Open to difficult stories of hurt, of loss, of pain. We aim to foster radical listening by investing our attention in all stories. We continue to invest in questions people pose in our circles, in stories they tell, like how do you navigate partaking in communities that are at odds with one another? Can we heal our relationship with loved ones who feel unheard? Can there be an idea of community bereft of violence? How do we heal fractured relationships? Stories are powerful. Even when we can't change minds, stories may touch people's hearts. The beginnings of Queer Listening Circle is also in a story. It is my story. One of not being heard, one of being pushed out of spaces supposed to be safe, supposed to be mine. I wish to create this space for myself and for all others who have found resonance in it. Even when we may be scared to take up space, allowing for our voices to emerge, allowing for our story to be heard is paramount. Speaking up for yourself, creating a space for your voice, it's not selfish, it's self-care. And care of the self is the imperative we face in today's world. Thank you for listening.